Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mr. Ali. It's Thursday evening, and it must be the real story on ZMC TV Network. And as always, I'd like to start off my show by sharing with you the latest COVID dashboard that we have. Unfortunately, because of the Indian variant, which is totaling up to 95% of all new cases, the figures are rising up. So approximately, we have seen a 400 new cases compared to the week previous. So where are we? At the moment, we have 1,527 cases compared to 1,126 positive cases last week. What does that mean in terms of per 100,000 population? We are now 133.7 compared to 98.6 per 100,000 population. In terms of the ward that have the highest number of positive cases, right out there at the moment is Selly Park, which has 911, and that is because there has been an outbreak in the student accommodation area within that ward, so that is why it's out there. Otherwise, Borsley and Highgate has 279, Birchfield has 247, Borsley Green 228, Nechells 208, followed by Tyseley and Haywills 202, Aston 174, Hall Green 166. In terms of the age group that has the highest increase, it is those from under 39, which are representing 45% of all new cases. In terms of where we are with the current vaccine numbers, there are a staggering 45 million people in the UK, which accounts for 65% of all population that has been vaccinated with the first dose. And in terms of second dose, 32 million people, which is amount to 48%. In terms of where the vaccination mobile unit is, so last week we had it in Alam Rock, both in the Saltley Adult Education Centre on Anthony Road and then followed by Norton Hall. Unfortunately, it wasn't as successful as I had hoped. However, you still have another chance because the mobile vaccination units are there until Sunday, both at the Millennium Centre but also at the Aston Villa ground as well. So today's topic is all about the culture wars in education, and today I have the academia, Dr. Karamat Iqbal, who has done extensive amount of work around certainly underperforming of Pakistani children. However, he also has a great insight into why white working class children are also underperforming. So welcome, Dr. Karamat. Dr. Karamat, are you there?
Yes.
How are you, Dr. Karamat?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me on your program.
As always, when it comes to education, you are a synonymous name within every household within Birmingham and West Midlands. And I know you are normally associated with your studies and the vast, extensive research and paper that you have published with regards to Pakistani children that are underperforming. However, we are going to focus on possibly a group that may have been largely ignored. However, this week we have had, or last week we've had some select education committee that has published some findings which are now coming to the forefront, and we are going to be discussing that, which is all about white working class that are underperforming within the field of education. So have you had a read of the report or certainly these findings, and do you agree whether white working class pupils have been failed by England's education system?
Well, to give you a bit of background, long before I started to research the British Pakistani boys, which was something I studied from 2011 onwards, before that, my focus was white working class children, particularly in Birmingham. And my 15 minutes of fame um, was due to one of my reports in 2009 was used in Parliament for a debate on Birmingham's white working class children. So it is something that I am interested in. It is something I've researched and parallel with my focus on Pakistani boys, I keep myself up to date with education of white working class children. So there's nothing new for me in terms of this particular report.
Sure. So, just to sort of share with the viewers, in terms of how white working class children, so those that are eligible for free school meals, are vastly underachieving both in early years at GCSEs, A level, and also in terms of university places. So it seems to be their whole journey from early years all the way through to university. And is this something that you have also found anecdotally and from your research as well? Is this something that surprises you, or is this something that you already knew?
I've read the report since it was published, and I was not surprised with anything in there, including their focus and their little discussion about white privilege. Though I wasn't surprised about it, but in terms of the white working class children, white disadvantaged children, sometimes referred to white children on free school meals, so different definitions. It's a long-standing problem. There have always been. I've got plenty of books and papers in my library which tell me that this is a long-standing problem. There was a time when children could leave school without much qualifications and still get a job. There are parts of Birmingham where they could leave school, like Longbridge, near where I am. They could walk from the school to Longbridge without any qualifications. But that world has changed. Now, if you don't have qualifications, you can just forget it. Life is just going to be not a joy. You're not going to have the opportunities. And so now it matters whether you have education or not. But the trouble with the white working class is it's been a long-standing problem. It is multi-generational, so you will have parents who were failed by the education system, grandparents, great-grandparents, whole communities not served properly by their education. And some of that is very much with us. And of course, the report is right. There is very little in the report I disagree with. There are facts. Because white working class are a very large group, and they are across the country, those who leave school without the right qualifications, the GCSEs in English and maths, they're a large number. So they are still, and going to be for some time, going to be the largest group of children who leave our schools without the right qualifications. And something seriously has to be done. And writing reports is not going to fix it. I sometimes jokingly say, nobody ever loses weight by weighing yourself every day. You lose your weight by doing something in between weighing. And, your diet or your exercise, that's what helps you to lose weight. Nobody is going to suddenly start achieving at school because you published a report. And this report, when they announced it last year that they were going to publish it, I didn't even bother to make a submission to them because I knew they hadn't done what the recommendations were from the previous report, where I did make a submission in 2016, and or may have been 2015. And so I thought, well, I'm not going to waste my time, and I'm glad, because the problems we have still with us and the problems they have flagged up in their report, actually, what I said to them in last time in my submission, and other people had said, it was a much more extensive report with lots of academics who engaged with. They said those recommendations are still waiting to be implemented. Until those recommendations are implemented for the white working class and other disadvantaged children, nothing is going to happen. And indeed, I would even go further, that this government has actually caused some of the problems.
In what way? Please elaborate.
Well, for example, it is well known, and it was actually in Birmingham that we found out that 15% of a child's time is spent in school. 85% of their time is spent away from school, at home, in the community, in the neighborhood. And so schools alone are not going to fix the problem of disadvantaged communities. What you need is something going on away from school, youth centers, youth clubs, extracurricular activities, public libraries, what parents do. And of course, some parents need a bit of help. So you need parenting education. You need resources in the community. So the children are learning when they're away from the school. Many of those services, many of those facilities have been done away with, and that's happened in the last 10 years of Tory government. Libraries are closing, youth clubs are closing. So many of the disadvantaged children have nowhere to go, have nowhere to spend their time positively. And until that is sorted, schools can do so much, but there is a limit to what they can do.
So the austerity years and the reduction in the school premium has played a significant part in the white working class children not performing well. So just to sort of share some stats with our viewers, in terms of GCSE results, 18% of white kids that are eligible for free school meals gain 5 or more GCSE, and that equates to about 25% overall for the UK population, which includes Pakistani, Bengalis, and also other communities as well. In terms of entry to university, only 16% of white working class children with free school meals got into university, and that compares with 59% for Bangladeshi, who we think are notoriously associated with underperforming in education, and 32% with Black Caribbean children as well that are eligible for free school meals. So white working class significantly underperform certainly when it comes to higher education as well. And we've already touched on some of those reasons as to why, whether it is, lack of school premiums, whether it is multi-generational, lack of real investment as well. You can also put it down to poor investment in their local communities and their job market and some of the services where they grow up. And also, I think there may be an element where you suggested that, if your previous generations haven't felt the benefit of education, then you certainly won't as well. And chances are you will then rely on your parents or your network to get you a job, maybe in the old traditional routes. However, because of the pandemic and generally the manufacturing industry has been completely decimated, that is having a real impact in their employment prospects. So it's a real doomy, gloomy sort of picture that we are painting. However, one thing that isn't positive and also something that we should be encouraging is the fact that the author of the report was blaming terms such as white privilege for this, saying that that has hurt the white kids and they haven't had the investment that they should have. What are your thoughts, Dr. Karamat, about the term white privilege? Is that a rightly associated term, or is that something that we shouldn't be using?
In my view, of course there is white privilege, but it's not an absolute for every white person in the same way. It's a continuum. Some white people are lower end of the continuum of white privilege, and some are at the upper end. But basically, at a general level, if you are white, you are privileged. There are certain privileges that come your way because of your white skin. And when it is assumed that you're from your name, you are white, and there is discrimination, for example, against people with names that are assumed to be not white, and so of course there is privilege, and I would say the white working class have privileges to do with their color, but they won't be as privileged as the white middle class and the white upper class. But in the defense of the report, I think they talk about it in one section, but it's actually the media that has picked that up and focused on that at the expense of the rest of the report. But, I'd go back to what I said earlier, which is that although I'm defending the report, I think it was pretty much a waste of time because it doesn't say anything new. If you look at the previous report and the report before that, in fact, when you asked me to come on the program, I had a look at the report, but I wasn't expecting to learn anything new, and I didn't learn anything new, other than maybe the more up-to-date data, which simply is saying, the problem we had 20 years ago, or 30 years ago, 40 years ago with the white working class, we still have that problem. It's slightly improved. I think I remember something like 15 years ago, the figure was 15% of preschool meal white children who were achieving the qualifications. It's now gone up to 18%. In 15 years, it's gone up 3 points. It is a massive problem, and it's a massive problem that's national. Most areas, what they don't talk about are rural areas and seaside areas where it's even worse than urban areas. So I imagine there are parts of the country where it's far below than 18%, the figure you gave me for white working class. So this is a serious problem, and we cannot have such a large number of children leaving school without the right qualifications. And of course, about my work, they're following the white working class. I researched the Pakistani boys. So between them, the white working class and the Pakistani children have got its own. They're the two most underachieving groups in the country. You talk about Bangladesh. There was a time when Bangladeshi children used to do as poorly as Pakistanis, but they've done really well in the last few years, and they're gradually improving. They're a much smaller community, but they're making progress. And of course, we have the Indian and Chinese up there, far higher than white. Even the white disadvantaged community, the Indian and Chinese are sometimes doing better than them. And
Dr. Karamat, just come in there. I know there was there was much discussion, if I could just sort of bring you back to the term white, about, whether that should be included in the report, because there was one or two other people that were on that select committee saying that it is going to take away from the report what the findings are, and the media, as you rightly stated, has cotton onto that, and what it's going to do is it certainly is going to cause further divisiveness, disharmony. It's going to pit one group versus the next, and it's going to stoke that cultural war. And certainly when the report was published in the mainstream media, it exactly played as they had feared. And, unfortunately, what I am sort of fearful is whoever sort of, saw those headlines will then go onto the narrative that, as white working class, we are the ones that are being left behind. We are the ones that are being ignored. It is the Asians, it is the blacks that are getting all the benefits, are getting all the help and the support. And it just causes further resentment. It causes further animosity and racism. Is that something that you would also agree with?
I would. I think there are possibly people there in government and in the media who are actually fighting a culture war. They are deliberately using this, and it's not the first time when the government and the media has brought out the white working class to actually use it to make a point about culture wars and divide communities. And actually, it is not the fault of the minorities. Their parents, minority parents, do as well as they can when they can for their children. And white working class underachievement is not the fault of any minorities. So I wish the government would and the media would stop using the white working class to make a point against minorities and to divide our communities.
Absolutely. And any normal, sane, rational person would say that we need to level up irrespective of your background, and we should target all people, all children who are eligible for free school meals, because they are the ones that are underperforming compared to the rest of the children, whether they are middle class, whether they get whether they don't get school meals because of their income. And that is something that we have to fight, is the injustice, rather than those children that are eligible for free schools who are disadvantaged turning on themselves, and the parents and the communities turning on each other, which then unfortunately benefits no one as well. I'm just going to go and see some of the questions and comments that are coming through on the comments page, if I can, Dr. Karamat. So, walaikum salam, Ayub Hussain. Nice to see my cousin brother on your program again. Ayub Hussain, who's also known as Pops. So, yes, you got some family support there. Asif Mukhtar, Dr. Karamat Iqbal, very nice to hear from you. Absolutely. Javed Akhtar, Salam Ali Saab and Dr. Karamat Iqbal Saab, absolutely. And also, what does Dr. Iqbal think needs to be done for an equal playing field for the BAME communities? In this pandemic, we have suffered from digital poverty when kids were homeschooled due to closure of schools. So, Javed, actually, this particular report has said it is the white working class children that are eligible for free school meals that are the worst performing out of all of them. So I think that's the topic of today. So I don't know whether you want to touch on that, or whether you want me to go on to the next point as well, and maybe do it together.
I'll touch on that. I think yes. My position is very simple. It is saying you invest more in the communities that are most disadvantaged. And that is whether it's education, whether it's COVID, health, leisure, anything, employment. So the it is well known that Pakistanis and Bangladeshis are most disadvantaged communities alongside the white working class. And so the answer is simple. We need to invest more in those communities than others in order to level the playing field. It is called positive action in the legal jargon, and I actually think we need to practice positive action. I would even go further and say practice positive discrimination in order to level the playing field.
Interesting. Followed by another point here. Why are our kids underachieving in education? Is it because we import spouses from back home? Is it because of the language barrier for parents? Is it because parents are not giving time to their kids, marrying off at a young age, especially of our daughters, lack of opportunities to further education? What are your thoughts on why do the Pakistani children, and this is not to obviously hijack the topic, but if you could maybe just surmise if you are able to.
Again, it is a very simple and straightforward comment. I can't answer the questions posed about the possible causes, about spouses and so on. What I can say is that Pakistani children that I researched, many of them spend perhaps too much time going to the masjid after school, and they miss out on extracurricular activities or going to homework clubs, and they go to the masjid and they come home and they're too tired to do their homework. They also don't have somebody at home to help them with their homework. And so I have recommended that there should be homework clubs. Maybe there should even be homework clubs and homework centers at the masjids they're going to, at the mosques they're going to, because they're already there learning the Quran and learning their prayer and Islamiyat and so on. Some of that time should be used to do their homework, and some of the time also should be used to do extracurricular activities at the masjid. So I think there is some thinking that needs to be done, and certainly that is what I've recommended in my PhD book that came out, British Pakistani Boys.
Yes.
The role of education and the role of religion.
Yes, I'm familiar with you.
And of course, again, investment into those schools that are serving the Pakistani community and like the white working class. Remember, the Pakistanis are also disadvantaged. In fact, I have a statistic here from the report that for white British children, 14% nationally are on free school meals. For Pakistani children, it's 21%. So 7 more percentage points for Pakistani children. Let's not forget the poverty that the Pakistani community suffers from, and the physical environment. Their homes sometimes don't have the space to do homework and study quietly. That's why I've said that we should have homework clubs and learning centers away from the home, maybe at a mosque, maybe in the community center. Also invest in education for parents, adult education. So I'm agreeing with your listeners.
Yeah, just to come back in there now, we just got about 5 minutes left now, Dr. Karamat.
Okay.
We were talking about, I suppose, the point that you made that if any children doesn't benefit from education and get the necessary qualifications by going into further education, then it's going to be a very difficult life for them. But one potentially could argue that now vocational qualifications, apprenticeships are a real alternative to mainstream education, where you can potentially, up 45, 50,000 pound worth of debts, and the market changes. There's no real job at the end of going to university, and we know many graduates that are possibly doing jobs that don't need to be a graduate. So would you say it's all about having the focus and a clear direction on the course that you take, whether it is mainstream education, whether it's vocational qualifications, or whether it is learning a trade through an apprenticeship?
First of all, I will use my own example. I was sent to this country at the age of 12, and I only had 3 years of schooling in the UK before starting work at the age of 16. So I only had a couple of CSEs in the mid-70s, and spent the next 6 years going to evening classes. And so if you may have seen my post on Facebook. I have said that it doesn't matter if you leave school without the right qualifications, you should still be able to get something by going to a college. So we need more college places, more opportunities, and I fully agree with you. It doesn't have to be university. It can be some other skill you learn, some other knowledge. But the main thing to remember is that we live in an economy, in a society that is based on knowledge. The more knowledge you have, the more skills you have, whether it's practical or academic, the better chance you have of getting on. That is the one thing I would like your listeners to remember, because in such a competitive, knowledge-competitive society, that is what is going to get you ahead. And we cannot take our eye off the ball in that respect. And I'm always saying to people, you should always be studying. You always find half an hour or an hour. We now have the internet, and there is a lot you can learn by looking at the internet and downloading information. And so it could be a formal course, or it could be just learning independently.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Karamat. We are now towards the end of the show. I'm just going to give you the final thoughts, really, in terms of what more can be done, not only for the white working class children, but also for BAME working class children that are on free school meals. Because for me, I think collectively we need to level up and we need to empower these children and families to perform much better so they can go on to fulfill their promising lives as well. So what would you suggest for the government to do in order for there be an equal opportunity?
2 things I would say. First one is to quote Tony Blair, and that is education, education, education. That is for everyone to remember, whether you're young or old, whether you're a child or a parent, education is the key. And the second thing I would say to the government, national government and local government, is investment. Investment in those areas for those communities that are disadvantaged. And we already know, and I have pointed it out to you, that Pakistanis and Bangladeshis are disadvantaged, sometimes more so than the white working class. But whoever is disadvantaged, even within the Indian community, there's a pocket of community that is disadvantaged. Even there, I would say you invest. So investment, investment, investment in response to the problem of educational underachievement.
Dr. Karamat, as always, it's an absolute privilege. Yeah, himself, but I was a pleasure to be in your company, learning and getting insight of your thoughts. And for me, I think it's important that we level up and help all children, irrespective of their background. those people that are eligible for school meals and that are failing in the mainstream education. We have to provide targeted support. We have to support and empower their families as well. And we got to make sure that we also invest in vocational education as well. And we can't allow for the extreme on every side and for people with a political motive to pit one community, one race against the other, because they are no winners at all when you look at that. So until next week, please do to look after yourselves, maintain social distance, and look after each other. God bless.